Welcome to episode 8 of Swish Theory. My name is Chris Amundsen. I'm your host, along with my friend and brother, Mr. Laro Golden. Laro, today is not a great day to be a Bulls fan, and we chose to talk about the Bulls this week, and they're currently losing in pretty bad fashion to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota Timberwolves average 10 made three-pointers a game, and they're currently at 20. I think they're at 23 now. So pretty nice stuff. But how was your weekend other than watching this horrific horrific performance stretch by the Bulls, man?
Working a lot, for brother Jeff Bezos, especially around Christmas time. So been pretty busy. But as for these Bulls, man, it's I gotta tell you, you guys know me. I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic guy. I always think about, okay, maybe we try this or maybe we try that. I think I'm running out of that. And if you can make me run out of it, that says a lot. But other than that, man, I mean, I'm just ready to talk some good ball. We have a great guest on tonight. So I'm ready to go, man.
Yes, sir. We're going to get started with it. It's one of my, if not my oldest bloggable friend, currently writing for Sporting News for the entire NBA, the great Stephen Noh, also used to work for The Athletic. Steph, I know you've been watching this game with us, but how are you doing other than the Bulls? How's life going, man?
It's hard to focus on life when you're watching Tony Bradley taking corner threes. The Bulls down by 18. But things have been going good for me with the new job. Can't complain too much. Unfortunately, man, after this Knicks game where the Bulls just laid an egg, and then this game, it's kind of embarrassing to admit this, but I still kind of don't sleep great after the Bulls just play like crap. So, aside from that though, Bulls stuff aside, I've been good.
Yeah, there was an incredible World Cup final today between Argentina and France that went down to the final second, and it was you could see the joy and the experience of watching a truly great sporting event. I have not seen one of those events from the Bulls since about December of last year, and it's really been kind of all downhill for the Bulls since then, and it's really sad to see. We got Lonzo Ball news this week of the same type of variety we've been getting for the last almost year, which is not good. There's not really any major progress. He's not running yet. And Lonzo Ball is extremely important to this team. As you guys know, the Bulls are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. Lonzo Ball is an extremely important part of our defensive identity, and his passing, his playmaking, his transition. He's a transition maestro. So it really sucks, and Billy Donovan said it today in one of his quotes to the media. It really just sucks from a personal level that Lonzo Ball, who just loves playing ball, can't be out there. And obviously for the team, it really sucks as well. My first question to you, and we'll get right to it, is it time to make a big change for the Bulls? Steph?
Honestly, I don't really think it matters. I think they're trying to win games right now. They're, I think, 7th worst in the NBA. So they're going to be pretty far down in the tank standings no matter what. Now, I do think that with some moves, they don't need to make big moves. Just with a couple small moves here or there, they can lock in that 6th spot, because there's 5 really terrible teams. And then kind of the Bulls are definitely up for that 6th spot. And I mean, they're on the brink of being really bad. So just trading 1 or 2 rotation guys is all it's going to take if they want to go down that
path. Well, first of all, Steph, with the disrespect of the 3-point king in practice, Mr. Bradley shooting corner threes, let's remember he is the champion of practice 3-point contests. But anyway,
that's telling you right now that the Bulls are not something that the Bulls should be proud of.
As I said that, I'm like, oh god,
this is like when Arcidiacono beat Zach LaVine 1-on-1 in practice. You guys remember that a year or two ago?
Yeah.
That does not bode well for Zach LaVine or this team.
That's not the great plotted of the team that the Bulls think that it is. Yeah, when they're advertising that.
Steph and Chris, I kind of alluded to this before the show. Is like, I'm a pretty glass half full kind of guy, and it takes a lot for my glass to get empty, or even down to a sip, But watching these performances, especially, I went to the game with Salim against the first Knicks game. I went with Salim, and I was able to see that in person, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. I know we'll probably touch on Billy as well, but this team, they just seem like, and again, I don't like coming off this way at all, but they just seem like a team that's either given up on themselves or they don't believe in what the coaching staff is trying to get them to do anymore. It just doesn't, when you watch them play, that it just doesn't look like they're, I don't know. I don't want to be that. I'm going to leave that alone. I'll just leave it as, it just doesn't look like they believe in what they once believed in. Gosh, man, I don't even know where to go from here, Chris. Where do you want to go? There's a lot of stuff we could really.
Yeah, let's kind of break it into sections here. First is the roster construction itself. I think we all agree that the path that they put themselves on did not have the highest of ceilings, but it should have put them on the path to competency, which is something we hadn't seen for several years. We saw competency and more early last year, but Lonzo, Caruso went down with injuries in January. Zach LaVine obviously ended up having knee surgery at the end of last season, and he's still kind of working his way back. But I think the big three of Zach, DeMar, and Vooch have just never really played well together, and those are the three guys that you were banking your franchise on. And I think it shows ultimately a lack of talent evaluation and fit for the roster. And then with the other guys, there's a lot of good players, but a lot of them are just one-way players. They're either good at defense or good at offense, or they're very limited. And the roster is a bunch of mismatched pieces that when they're all healthy and clicking, they're really, really good. But teams are almost never healthy, and you're going to go through stretches where you're not clicking. And the Bulls have shown, I think, time and again with these injuries. And currently, if you watch this Minnesota game, they just look defeated. The entire team looks defeated. And I think you mentioned it right before we started the show, Laro. You want AK, Mark Eversley, and Arturas Karnisovas to come out and talk to the media and kind of take some accountability for the roster that they've put together. It was an idea that was intriguing, but not, didn't have the highest of ceilings. And the downside of it, we haven't even seen yet. I think it could get way worse. Like if DeMar goes down with an injury or Vooch goes down with an injury, it's going to get way worse. And so we've had these three healthy stars for the most part, and they've still been pretty bad. So, I'm not really even sure where to go with this either. Like I'm honestly stumped at what to do with the Bulls other than making major reversing changes. Like they have to undo the roster that they've done. I think the question is how much do you want to undo? How do you want to just retool around Zach LaVine? Do you want to just get rid of Vooch and try and bring something in, use some cap space next year? Or do you want to tear the whole thing down and just put the ball in Patrick Williams' hands and kind of see what he can do and acquire draft picks? Is there a way that you're leaning stuff, or is there another solution that you see to this roster at this point? Because I'm honestly, and we talk ball all the time, I'm just at a loss at this point with the Bulls.
Yeah, so I think that when you ask the Bulls fan base if they want to tear it down or not, in the beginning of the year, almost universally, people said, remember how bad tanking was. We don't want to go back to that. And now, as it's becoming more and more clear that this team is going nowhere, I think that if the Bulls were going to be a 45 win team or even like a 41 win team this year, people would be okay with that, at least like a decent percentage of people. But if you're keeping this team together for them to win 32 games, then what's the point, right? And I think that I think it's a totally reasonable point of view for people not to want to go back to this years and years of tanking where there's seemingly no progress. So I think a good middle ground for that is just to do like a 1 year tank. And I know the Bulls, they only have a top 4 protected pick. So there's a chance that even if they do that, it's not really going to bear that much fruit because they're going to have to give their pick to the Magic. But if they made a move like just getting rid of Vucevic, I mean, he's an expiring contract anyway, so he's probably not going to be on the team next year. That also opens up cap space where you can sign somebody in free agency with that salary slot, so you can get a good player back in return. And then you can obviously, get some sort of draft compensation or a young prospect. And like I said before, the Bulls are really close to just being a terrible team. I mean, they really are terrible on some nights, even with this full roster. So getting rid of Vucevic, I know, again, a lot of people think that Andre Drummond is a starting quality center. He's not. So if they start Drummond, and then that also weakens your backups a lot, where they've been playing Derrick Jones Jr. a lot at 5, which has actually been one of their better lineups. But I think that only works in certain matchups. So if you extend that and make him the primary backup, then you're going to get into a lot of trouble. Also, Drummond has just been fouling like crazy, so can't really count on him for starting minutes. So that's what I would do. I would try to move Vucevic. You can keep Zach and DeMar and reevaluate. You can use that salary spot to pick up a 3-point shooter, which they so desperately need. I mean, this team has no chance, absolutely no chance of doing anything right now because of their lack of 3-point shooting. You look across the NBA, all of the good offenses have a bunch of good 3-point shooters. I mean, this is not rocket science. This is not controversial. You need 3-point shooters to spread the floor for your stars. You need to take a lot of threes. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good offense. I mean, even like the Suns that don't take a ton of threes, they have really, really good shooters around their stars. And that's how those stars get good mid-rangers, good dunks for Aiden, stuff like that. The Bulls don't have that. The floor is just always crap. There's always help defenders. So I guess kind of a long answer there, but I would just move Vucevic and then reevaluate next year.
Yeah, Steph, you're hitting it right on the head. I'm a big Vooch guy. I won't lie. I was a big proponent of moving him. I mean, moving Wendell some picks to get Vooch. I thought that AK would continue to add to this roster the right way after creating, the 1-2 punch of Vucevic and Zach, and then he added DeMar, and I'm like, okay, well, now we need some shooting, and it's almost like he just stopped. He just, we're good, we got 3 studs, and we'll figure it out from there. And it's like, it's frustrating, man. So I get it. I get moving Vooch, expiring contract. He's going to be, for contending teams that need a back, maybe a 5 that can come right in, that can stretch the floor. He's got an expiring contract, so I'm pretty sure he would be attractive to some contenders as well. But it's frustrating, man. Gosh, man, I want to hit on the topic so bad, but I want to just wait until we actually get there. I'm not going to force it, but it's tough. Like tonight, I mean, the Wolves, they don't have Cat, they don't have Gobert. There's nobody protecting the basket. And it's like you're letting, I watched tonight, Vucevic let Luka Garza take him off the bounce. I mean, what's going, like, Luka Garza? I mean, I sit there and I watch and I'm like, it just almost seems as like Chris said, they're defeated and they're like, you know what, whatever, it doesn't matter. If I give it up my all anyway, we still lose. So why am I gonna give them all? It's like it just seems like that's the body language it shows out there. Like, why am I gonna try? I mean, I just dropped 41 the other night in Sacramento and we still lost. Whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of cohesiveness. And I know we had a conspiracy theory. I got a check of when the date the Billy Donovan extension was made public. and look at the record before and after. But let's get surgical with some of the problems. We talked about the lack of shooting on the roster. We talked about the fact that the 3 stars aren't playing well together, and they're all kind of known for being offensive players first and defensive player optional. I think Vooch is a better defensive player than he gets credit for, but he's also limiting on the defensive end as far as your versatility. The coaching has also been a little lackluster, I think. I don't think it's the top problem, but Laro, I think you've been right on the money about Donovan's offense. And I know, Steph, you were watching tonight to kind of see what the Bulls were doing on both ends. So I wanted to get your thoughts, Steph, about Coach Donovan and what he's been doing recently, and how you think he's done, and whether or not you think that extension was the right move for the Bulls. And then I know, Laro, you want to get into the offensive sets that you think they should be running as well. So Steph, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, my opinion on Donovan is he's pretty average coach. I agree with you, Chris, where he's not really helping the team that much, but I don't think he's hurting them either. Their offense tonight wasn't a problem. I mean, they scored 126 points. Look at cleaning the glass right now. It's a 91st percentile in offensive outputs. And their defense they gave up 150 points. It's just crazy. Yeah, but I think he's just super hampered by the personnel. Like I said, I mean, you need spacing. Like, I know that a common criticism of the Bulls offense is they're too isolation heavy. I mean, first of all, they have awesome isolation players, like 90th percentile offensive players in DeMar and Zach. And second of all, I mean, if you look at the tracking data, like they're bottom 10 team in isolation. So they actually don't isolate that much. They do a lot of pick and roll stuff, do a lot of 5-out stuff. 5-out doesn't work, though, when you're playing with guys who can't shoot. And you see this all the time in games where some of these guys on the team, like Caruso, Javonte Green, they shoot a decent percentage, but that's really misleading because all their shots are wide open. Guys aren't guarding them. They're just camping the lane. They're playing boxes and elbows to crowd DeMar. And it's better to have a guy who shoots it a lot. Like Duncan Robinson's only shooting 36% this year. You way rather have him than Javonte shooting. I don't even know what he's shooting right now, like 43% or whatever. Because teams actually have to guard Duncan Robinson. Like they run Duncan Robinson off screening actions when he doesn't have the ball, and he takes up an entire side of help defense. And that opens up stuff for Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and those guys. The Bulls don't have that luxury, so it's just it's a really crappy roster construction. It's just inexcusable, like to not have any 3-point shooting in 2022. It's just like mind blowing. So yeah, I think certainly Billy could do some stuff better. Like Laro, I saw your Twitter thread where you wanted some more variety of actions. Okay, I like that's fair. Like that's definitely a fair criticism, but I think that if you had Spoelstra or any of these other top coaches, they still would not be able to turn this Bulls roster into anything more than maybe like a 6th seed at best. So I'll give the floor to you, Larry. You can debate me on this.
I would definitely like to be a 6th seed right now, but anyway, the thing is, right, and I don't want to come off as like a Billy hater, and that's I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying in terms of like he's an average coach, and he's not really hurting us in a way. But here's what I mean, and this is why sometimes I don't like to tweet, because like I can't really get off what I want to get off. Like for instance, there's a example against Oklahoma City and Oklahoma City towards the end of the game. They were hunting for Josh Giddey, to get on DeMar, and Dort just fought through screens and just continued to stay in front of DeMar. And he was kind of frustrating DeMar a little bit. He was playing some pretty good defense on DeMar. And this is where I get frustrated with Billy, is because like like I always see it on Twitter. Oh, there's adjustments. There's a lineup. Like lineup adjustments, cool. That's cool. Having the right guys out there is cool. But like when it comes down to, okay, how can I help my guys get an easier bucket? How can I help DeMar DeRozan find an easier basket? Why do I have to continue to depend on DeMar DeRozan playing one-on-one with 4 guys and waiting on him for help? What can we do differently? I understand there's no shooting. Well, that you motherfucker better be cutting or screening. If you can't space the floor, then why are you spacing the floor? You're not helping. You're just continuing to sit in the corner and allow your man to help off. And it's like going back to the play I'm talking about. If the whole point was to get Giddey on to DeMar, right? If Dort is gonna continue to fight through the screens, Pat was the screener. Why not have the first ball screen doesn't work? Why not have Pat veer to set a veer screen for Zach LaVine and get a switch that way, right? Why can't if we want to get the ball in one of our best scorers' hands late in the game? Why can't we be a little bit more creative? Okay, cool. They don't want to switch. All right, Pat, when you set the ball screen, let's have Zach LaVine, let's put you in that opposite corner. If they don't switch, be ready to catch this veer screen from Pat. And now we're putting another two players in conflict. Are they gonna communicate well? Are they gonna switch it? What are they gonna do? There's more things you can do. Like every time I see Zach LaVine run off a stagger screen, it's a good look. Every time I see him get the ball off a dribble handoff, like last year he was pretty good off of handoffs. Like every time I see him off ball, there's good things. And it's like right now he's not the isolation player he once was last season. So it's like, at least in my eyes, if I was coaching, I got to figure out a way. It's one, you can't just keep feeding the guy same thing and expect things to change. Right now, it's not. He's not feeling right now. Okay, so why not me as a coach? Okay, what can I do to help Zach LaVine get easier basket? What can I do to put him in a better spot? Okay, Zach is a good cutter. He's a very good. He can obviously attack closeouts. He's a vertical threat. We can throw on a lob to him. We can have him as a screener in Spain. We can run him off pin downs, zipper actions, different simple actions to get him in rhythm. It's not happening. It's literally bring the ball down, and then they may do Chicago, or it's Pat middle pick and roll, and Pat takes the switch all on down, which teams are going to switch as long as they have a capable enough defender, because the point is just keep somebody in front of DeMar. You ain't worried about his three ball, so just switch it and keep a guy in front. And it's just like, it's frustrating to watch. And I understand he's being hamstrung because of the roster, but also you have to do every damn thing you can do to get the best out of this roster. That's why I took a little bit of offense to him throwing, the 3 stars have to be better. Yes, the 3 stars know they have to be better. People with eyes know they have to be better. But like, what the hell can you do differently to help this team? Like, that's why I didn't like that. It's like, okay, people that understand basketball know those 3 guys have to be better. Like, so what the hell did you coming into the press conference saying the 3 stars have to be better is doing it for anyone? How about, why haven't you ran? We had you on, Steph, when we first hired Billy. Why haven't you ran the Hawk series? Why haven't you done different things to help this team, throwing different looks at this team? Defenses are not scared of this offense, 1, because of shooters, but also 2, they know what the hell you're going to do. It's predictable. Watching that second game as the Knicks, Tibbs, let's push, let's ice this screen, and we know they're going to try to skip it. Just sit there for the skip. They stole the skip like multiple times. Like, I understand he's young. But okay, we're at a point now where it's like we got to find another way to get to give defense a different look. Okay, get the ball to Pat. Let him do some different things, because right now you can't depend on the big 3 stars as much as we did last season. And I know they scored a lot of points tonight, but I mean, dog, it was like an open gym game. It was like open gym. It was the guys getting up and down, dudes dunking, and I'll cut it short, but shorter. But yeah, it's just frustrating because like when I watch the game, I also like look at it as in coaching situations. Like after timeouts, like it's bad. They're pretty poor after timeout. ATOs after looking at synergy, it's just, man, it's frustrating, man. Like the only thing that I truly liked about what Billy did this year is when he ran motion strong against the Bucks, because that really put them in a pickle. And putting Vooch in the corner and having him come off the staggers now puts Brook Lopez in positions that he's not used to, fighting through screens. And then also you have Giannis guarding Pat, who's a screener. So now Giannis is in the action he's not used to, and you got Giannis fighting through screens, and that's one of his weaknesses of defense. So I loved it because you were finding different ways to attack the Bucks. But then it's like, damn, they ran an action for Pat down in the mid post. He got a couple good looks out of it. They went away from it. The other night against the Knicks, he had 11 points. Went away from him. Like what? Like if something's working, why break it? Right? Like let's work it. Let's work that, because the damn Knicks, they worked that Spain continuously and got good looks. So why do we run away from things that may be working? Like we already know DeMar DeRozan can get a bucket at the end of the game. So like at the end of a shot clock or whatever, or at least get a good look. So let's run things. And it's just sometimes the actions are connected. They're it's just, I don't know. I'll keep going. I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's funny, Lero. That Bucks game was probably the best coach game of the season for Billy on the offensive end. I can guarantee why. It's because they had 5 games worth of notes from the playoffs on that specific team, right? Like they just pulled out the notes and said, okay, what worked against the Bucks in the playoffs? Like, what do we, that's where they spent a week and a half in prep for that game or for that series. So, that's probably why they were running a bunch of that kind of stuff, because they know what worked and what didn't. And, they're scouting on these the other individual teams, just hasn't been as good. And as you said, like Tibbs, from one game to the next, to the first Knicks game to the next, he made a lot of adjustments and he's like, this is working. Let's keep running it. Here's what they're going to do. The offense is very predictable. And once you kind of get that down, you can stop the Bulls from doing what they want. Another thing you mentioned was, Steph said, hey, they're running a lot of 5 out, but you can't really run 5 out. If you can't shoot, you can't continue to stand there. Like you said, Lero, you can't continue to stand in the corner because your man's going to just sag off you and clog the paint. So you have to be involved in screening actions. You have to be cutting. You have to be in constant movement. You just don't see a lot of constant movement with the offense. You don't. Other than like your kind of basic pick and roll, your Chicago actions, there's just not a whole lot that they're doing on a nightly basis to really mix it up. They're not finding a whole lot of wrinkles within the plays that they are running. Like I think Steph, you've pointed out a couple of them early on in the season, but it just seems like they're just not doing a whole lot of that. And I don't know if the players are just tuning Billy out at this point. And I know it's like such a cliche, like media meathead kind of thing to say. Like, I don't know what kind of reception that he has in the locker room now, based on the way that they are carrying themselves out on the floor. But Billy, I think there's some low-hanging fruit for a very flawed roster that he's not really plucking at this point. But if do you guys have any other comments on the coaching? If not, we can we can talk about something else. This is a depressing podcast already, but I'm hoping to get some positivity in here at some point.
Yeah, I have one other note on Billy, just to back up what you were saying, Chris. We were talking about this in the group chat after the Knicks game. Darnell Mayberry of The Athletic tweeted out Zach's post-game interview in the locker room, and Zach just looked, totally miserable. You remember maybe like a couple weeks ago, Zach, I think, was like 1 for 13 in a game, and Billy benched him for the end of that game, and Zach was really pissed. And reporters asked him about it a couple days later. He didn't back down. He said, I've earned the right to be out there in those closing moments. So I do think that Zach has always been a huge Billy proponent, especially after some of these goofball coaches that he's had in the past. But perhaps that bond is breaking. It looks like it might be a little bit. And understandably, losing just causes those fractures to get much deeper, even if they're rock solid. So it's totally understandable. But Chris, I just wanted to add some additional context that I think what you're saying has some validity.
Yeah, with the Billy Zach relationship, with any coach, the most important relationship you can have is with your best player or your most important player. If you lose that player, you lose the team. And you see these coaches get fired pretty quickly after that kind of thing happens. So I am concerned because Donovan just signed an extension. I don't even know for how long it is, but they said multiple years. So we're looking at, and this wasn't even his last year on the contract. So, we're looking at 3 or 4 more years maybe of Donovan. So if Levine does not respect him anymore or does not have that relationship, I would not be surprised if by the end of the season we get rumblings of Zach LaVine wanting out of Chicago. And I think, he's definitely he's definitely had his own faults here. He's shooting, for example, 27% in the clutch this season, 27%. And he's supposed to be one of your best clutch players. And his decision-making in the clutch has been really bad. His defense against the Timberwolves tonight has been Minnesota level bad. Like when he was in Minnesota, this kind of the stuff he was doing. I know we were talking about this and kind of sharing clips, but they kept running a pick and roll between. It was first D'Angelo Russell and their center Knight. I think Nathan Knight. I think is his name. Yep. They ran it 3 times in a row, and they got two dunks and a foul off of it. The 2 dunks came against Zach and Kobe as the defenders. They were playing low man, and they weren't helping. They weren't high enough. They weren't quick enough. The third one, Patrick Williams actually played it really well. Came up high above the circle, got in place, but they called a blocking foul instead of a charge. But I thought it could have easily been a charge. And then they ran it again. They ran it again with Anthony Edwards and Nathan Knight again, and Zach just failed to rotate whatsoever. And Vooch was pointing at him like, "What the heck are you doing out here, man?" And then Vooch tonight also was kind of really poor at different points against Naz Reid defensively. So the vibes are not good anymore. And I think we have to get into a discussion of what can be done to fix this roster this season. Steph, I think you kind of advocated for hey, trade Vooch, maybe trade Kobe, and kind of reevaluate. What would you be looking to bring in that kind of trade? And do you think DeMar should be on the table at some point if it continues to be really bad?
I think they should certainly listen to offers for DeMar, but I wouldn't move him just to move him. I mean, he's on a really good contract. He's so underrated by people that don't watch the Bulls. I mean, he's awesome. Like, I know that the criticism against him is that he crumbles in the playoffs. You know, he wasn't very good for Toronto in the playoffs, but he had no help on any of his teams. So I think you can definitely build a contender around DeMar and Zach. You know, Zach's had a really crappy year, but, you know, I mean, they were the number 1 seed until February last year. I think that the main pieces are not that bad. It's just these supporting pieces that totally suck. Again, total failure of roster building, but yeah, they all they need to do is just tank 1 year. Like, if they get to the 6th seed, they have a 9% chance at Wemby. That's really good. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but you don't have very many opportunities to get franchise level players to your team. I mean, the Bulls can't do it in free agency. They've shown over and over again they can't do that. It's difficult to do it in trades because they don't have a lot of assets. So 9% chance at totally changing your fortunes. That's really good. They also have a 9% chance at Scoot. Okay. They have a 9% chance at Amen Thompson, who I think is going to be awesome. Like, nobody's talking about the Thompson twins. Those guys could easily be number 1 picks in a different draft. It just so happens that there's these 2 amazing prospects. So you're giving yourself a 40% chance at totally changing the luck of this franchise. There's no other avenue that the Bulls have, even close to that level of success. And yeah, 60% of the time you're going to be screwed. But if they don't make these moves, 100% of the time they're going to be screwed. So yeah, I think it's a total no-brainer what they have to do at this point.
Laro, I know you're paying attention to the draft. Do you think a 40% chance that one of those guys is worth kind of kicking the can for the rest of the season?
Let me tell you something. That French brother, okay, that French brother, he's different. Okay, I know they like to use unicorn for KP, but KP ain't got nothing on this young brother, man. I mean, so, and then Scoot, I mean, Scoot is, I mean, you talk about point guard. I mean, yes, I think it's worth it. I can understand, I guess, why certain people would say no, but I mean, those 2 dudes are franchise changers. Like, they're changing the trajectory of your franchise as soon as they step foot in your practice facility. You know, like it's so. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's worth it. You know, even if you're around the 6th spot, I still think there are some good players that could come in and help the Bulls now and future.
Well, they're giving up that. They give up that pick, unfortunately. If it doesn't go top 4, that pick goes to Magic.
Oh, I'm tripping. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the Bulls need to kind of operate almost as if that pick doesn't exist and just do the tanking anyway. Just get rid of Vooch because you kind of need to. But that 40% chance would be, I mean, that's 40% chance versus zero. Like what? That sounds better to me.
I think if like Steph said, if you just want to move Vooch and you want to still kind of try some things out with DeMar and Zach, I think it's a must to move Vooch because you need to find some either a comp like an even more above average defender at the 5 to really help with those. I mean, guys, you guys are watching the same thing I'm watching. These, as much as we've seen Zach kind of grow, defensively at times. You see some good things off ball. Sometimes you see some good on ball defense sometimes, but hasn't been consistent. So if you want to continue on with Zach and DeMar, I think you got to move on from Vooch and try to find some way to bring in a starting level defensive 5. Jakob Poeltl would be nice, but no, I'm just kidding. But I think that's the way you got to go, man. And people know I'm a big Vooch guy, and you guys like Vooch as well. But it might be time, man. It might be time to move on from him. After tonight, watching some of those rotations from him, they're in zone. Zone is such a basic. I shouldn't say that because a good zone is pretty good. But you can't be out of position in zone as the 5. How? I don't know. But yeah, man, I agree with you guys. If you want to continue to go with Zach and DeMar, I think you got to move on from Vooch and try to find a starting caliber 5 that can defend.
Yeah, there may be other benefits to kind of doing a little mini tank here for the rest of the season. If Zach's knee needs help, maybe he could sit a few games. Like I wouldn't mind a little bit of rest, and maybe sit DeMar a few games. I think, and there's one thing I do want to focus on, which is one of the only positives that has come out of the season so far. I think Patrick Williams has really improved on the defensive end this year, and he's done it with more consistency. He's still young, he's 21, but I think he's had some really nice showings against big league competition. The way he was handling Julius Randle on defense in that little mini Knicks series, I think he played really well against Tatum. I think he played well as well as you can against Giannis. I know they were kind of doubling and doing some, they were definitely game planning for Giannis specifically, but I think he's done a really nice job. And I've seen him for the first time this season calling out defensive plays as they're happening, right? Like there was a Spain pick and roll. I can't remember. It was a week or two ago, and he was pushing Vooch and telling him where to go. And Vooch didn't rotate fast enough, but he saw the Spain pick and roll coming. He saw that Vooch was about to get, back screened on that stack, and he was calling out these plays, and he's helping people be in position. I think he needs a lot more reps defensively, but I think he's made some strides there. And I think offensively, even though his offensive impact has not been there, I think a lot of that has to do with how few shots he's taken and how little he touches the ball. You can't really be a dynamic, impactful offensive player unless you are like an absolute movement shooter, high volume movement shooter, and you're just shooting every time you touch it. Or you got to have the ball in your hands and you got to be doing stuff. And we've seen rack up some really nice assists these last few games as well. He's had 3, 4, 5 assists in his last few games. There's a lot of promising signs there, and I would not mind seeing what you have in him offensively a little bit more than they have this season, even if it costs you, if you have to move Vooch and replace his usage and up Pat's usage, I think I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine having Pat play a little bit more 5. I think he's done fine in those, kind of short stints as well. But I know you've been kind of covering the whole league stuff, but in my crazy here, I think I've seen a lot of improvement here defensively from Pat. Do you think it's real? And do you think it's worth putting the ball in his hands more to kind of see what we have offensively with him?
I think he's improved a little bit. I wouldn't go quite as far as you, as far as how big that improvement was. If you look at his impact stats, he rates extremely well, like top 10% of defenders, which totally is not what my eye test is saying, but
yeah,
probably telling me that I'm missing something when I'm watching. So when I watch him, His mistakes are very glaring. Like, he loses a lot of cutters. He's not very good when he's the low man. I think he's okay like pulling over and protecting the rim, but as far as the other stuff like Xing out, like playing to, yeah, just making sure guys don't cut through the lane. He gives up a lot of dunks, and that kind of stuff just really frustrates me. But that takes away from the other stuff that he does well. Like you said, I think he's better than people realize at guarding some of these big wing scorers, which is the most valuable defensive skill you can have. The Bulls put him on some ridiculously stupid matchups, like he guards Devin Booker and then he looks like crap. Again, you know, that's what makes his defensive reputation look bad, because his mistakes are such big mistakes. He'll totally lose a guy and give up a wide open 3 or dunk. But I think when he's in a role that makes more sense and is more valuable, when he has to guard Kawhi, PG, LeBron, these guys that aren't super fast, you just need to be strong. There aren't a lot of guys that have that kind of strength and that kind of lateral movement to stay with guys like LeBron and Patrick. That's why he's so valuable. I think those signs have been really good, because he wasn't able to do that a couple years ago, and he is now. As far as offensively, I mean, if you want to give him more reps, that's fine. Like, I don't think he's been that good offensively, but I'm also not out on him. I think that Bulls fans have shown themselves just to be too impatient with these young guys. Like Lowry, you know, I mean, Lowry had a lot of time, so I think it was fair to be out on him, and his development was really an outlier. But it is what it is. Like, if they had waited a little bit more, I mean, probably for Lowry specifically, he never would have found it, because his mentality was just so screwed up. I think Wendell, though, like your guy, Chris, Wendell Carter, like if they had just given it one more year, he probably could have figured it out in Chicago, and he's been very good in Orlando. I think he's been probably top 12 center in the league. So you don't want to make that same mistake with Pat, especially given that Pat was the second youngest guy in his draft class behind Poku. So I think it's tough, because he hasn't been on the same path as some of these other guys that were in his class, but I still think it's way, way too early to make any definitive judgments. And to your point, Chris, I mean, maybe that is a good reason to just give him more opportunities and see, just get a better evaluation for what he is, because you don't want to make that same Wendell Lowry mistake again.
On the Lowry point, I was listening to him talk to JJ on his pod, JJ Redick's pod, and I thought what he said really it definitely shows why he has improved so much. I mean, he talked about just like the years of experience, and there was one where he said like he used to be mad at somebody was yelling at him when he wouldn't slide over for help, or he wouldn't do something on defense, and he's like, now that I have the years of experience under my belt, now
that he doesn't have to run suicides before games to make those rotations.
He's like, I totally get it now. You know what I mean? And he just kind of really, I thought it was really cool to hear how he explained why he thinks he improved. But yeah, man, I mean, you know, on the Pat front, I've been on too many pods talking about Pat, so I won't go too much longer. But like, call me optimistic, but I really would like to see him with more reps. I just think that his reps have been too sparingly, and people just want him to cut and take threes when he, you know, like, I truly believe that a lot of his flash coming out, a lot of the optimism coming out of college when he was, coming out, was his on-ball intrigue, his ability to play on ball. And I just feel like a lot of people, you know, went out on him on the on-ball rep, role too early. And I I get it once, you got Zach LaVine, DeMar, but like, I think at least for me, and I've talked to, Evan Zoucha and a couple other guys like that, that was a lot of the intrigue, especially offensively, was his potential on ball. And, he kind of got, shot put it, kind of like turbo speed into a win now mode. So he never really, he hasn't really gotten the kind of usage and reps to really understand what he can be offensively. So, you know, I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm more optimistic than most on Pat offensively and defensively. He's taking strides, and I think that a lot of people are not going to see that because one, like you said, a lot his mistakes where he's in no man's land, where he's trying to be too perfect. Sometimes I feel like he's trying to be too perfect on offense. He's trying to be on help side, but he's also trying to be, be able to get over, for the lob, and he's just like in between a lot of times. So it's like, again, I believe he'll get better at that, but. Yeah, man, I'm more optimistic. He's taking strides, and I feel like the way the team has played has kind of like overshadowed some of his improvement, and I think his offensive impact numbers are probably hit by how bad he started this year. So it's yeah, man, that's where I'm at.
I think the other thing people need to remember about Pat is when he was drafted, he was a project. He didn't start at Florida State. So if you expected him to come in here and be a great NBA player, I mean, that just is not a reasonable expectation.
Thank you. I say this all the time. Like, they drafted the 19-year-old that was on the bench. He had tools. He had not a lot of reps. And then he missed his entire second year after spending half of his first year with a tanking team and then trying to win all of a sudden in a completely different role. He said, this is his first year in a normal situation with expectations that are fairly clear for him. Thank you, Steph. I needed to hear someone else say it because I feel like I'm going crazy when I talk about Pat being like, do you really expected Pat to be the difference maker in his second year in the NBA or his third year in the NBA after missing his whole second season? That sounds crazy to me.
I think he's being hurt too by these really ridiculous comparisons. Like Stacey King was calling Chandler Hutchison young Pip. I mean, that doesn't do these guys any favors. When he calls Pat the Paw and says he's going to be the next Kawhi, like what is that accomplishing? Like, that just makes it much harder on Pat and creates all this negativity when he's not that guy. When that's like crazy to expect him to do that.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, he could down the road, but this is still year 3 for the guy.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I think we should be more patient with Pat, and I think if this season keeps going the way that it's going, he'll have some more opportunity to do so. Steph, I know you got to run, so we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting balls with us. I know it can be depressing, but we wanted to kind of diagnose the problems a little bit. I know you got a lot of good work that you've been doing since you joined Sporting News. Is there anything upcoming that you want to shout out, or have people follow you for your work that's upcoming?
Not really. I always tweet out my articles. I'm trying to be on Twitter less, just because the platform's so buggy now anyway. So I am starting up a TikTok, but it's probably not geared as much towards your audience. I'm trying to gear it more towards casuals, and you guys have the genius NBA fans watching this. But if you want to, you can follow me at Stephen Noh on Twitter and on TikTok. And thank you guys so much for having me. I love a lot of the people that you're working with over at Switch Theory. So if people are listening and are not familiar with the platform, I strongly recommend you guys check it out. Check out some of the articles. They're really, really smart. It's not just like this clickbaity stuff that you see other places.
Man, appreciate that, Steph, man. I really, really do. It's really fun to catch up and talk with you, because when we were doing Bulls 101, it was really cool to have you on, when we were doing our free agent, kind of pod, and we did our.
Don't go back and listen to that. My free agent plan was not very good.
I was gonna suggest maybe we do it again this year. That we should just do it, have a little fun and put up a little stat again this year. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. Actually, we got to go back and listen to it. Maybe it's worse than I remember.
Well, I think I just stood pat. I think I just said just resign a bunch of guys, and if I remember, I think that's what it was. And
I was the crazy one that said we're gonna get Lonzo Ball, and I was like the high end outcome, and then we did the wildest off season in the world instead. So we all looked like fools.
Good times.
Wait, but before you get out of here, Steph, I just want to know your thoughts on Lonzo, the whole Lonzo situation. How do you think? I mean, how do you feel about this whole Lonzo thing?
I was telling these guys in the group chat, man, Surgery is not a solution. I mean, when you have something like a torn ACL, torn Achilles, something structural, and you get surgery on it, then yeah, that'll fix it, especially these young guys who are super athletes. But if you just have knee pain and you get a scope, there's not a lot of medical evidence to suggest that that's effective. The reason I know this is I've seen 9 knee specialists for my knee for a very similar problem to what these guys have, both Zach and Lonzo. And I mean, it's just they have biomechanical issues, both of them, and surgery is not going to fix that. So I'm not very hopeful just based on my own experiences. I probably have a bias towards thinking that, like, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail syndrome. But yeah, I mean, from my personal experience, I would be really worried about both of them since it's not structural.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, man. Well, thanks so much again for your time, Seth. We appreciate it, and we'll chat again with you soon. All right.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Anytime. Let me know anything I can ever do to help out Swish Theory and help you guys out. You guys have a great product, so we have to get more eyes on it.
Hey, appreciate that, man. Appreciate it. Always all the best to you.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.
See you.
Well, that was a depressing last note with Steph talking about the knee issues, and I do think he's right to be worried about this because it does not look good. Lonzo looked super depressed before he had decided to do this, or right after he decided to do the second surgery, because it just seemed like no one really knew what was going on. And then it seemed like it was pretty hopeful. There was some positive news finally coming out with them, like 8 to 10 weeks after that surgery. And now it's kind of back to where it was before, which is he's still not really progressing. He's not really there yet. And, that $20 million contract, I said at the time, a healthy Lonzo Ball is one of the best, if not the best role players you could have in the NBA. And I think he's so much more than just a role player. Like he is the glue for this team in a lot of different ways. And if he's not coming back, I don't even know if that 1 year or that, tanking for the rest of the season is really going to cut it. Because that's $20 million in the books that it's a dead asset, right? Like, yeah. And obviously on a personal level, it just sucks for Lonzo because he is so fun to watch play basketball. And you can tell how much joy he has playing basketball. I really hope that Steph's wrong. I know Steph hopes he's wrong too, right? About the longevity of that injury and the kind of the prognosis for his future. But if the Bulls are in this situation, if Lonzo doesn't know what's going on by the trade deadline or by the end of this season, I think you really got to look at a more complete rebuild at that point. And, it sucks that the Bulls just picked a direction like a year and a half ago, and they're already looking like they may need to reverse course. And if they do rebuild it, they got to do it the right way. I was on a podcast today with our friend Salim and Ed for Bulls Gold talking about that. But the Bulls really did themselves such a disservice last time they rebuilt this team, not acquiring any assets, not putting any emphasis or investment at all on player development. They did not bring in a good coach to do any of that. Like, it's just a complete failure on all levels of a rebuild. And it was really embarrassing, honestly, as a Bulls fan and as just a fan of the game in general. And, Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Evans came into that situation where the cupboard coming out of a rebuild was, I think, comparatively bare to a lot of other teams that were in that situation. And are you at the point now? I know you said you're usually optimistic, and that I am. I think we're probably two of the more optimistic Bulls fans in kind of the media in general.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Because I honestly feel like if they decided, like if Zach LaVine asked for a trade today, I'd be like, okay, I'm ready. Yeah. And not because I don't think Zach LaVine's a good player, but I don't see a positive outcome to the rest of the season. I think their best outcome is tank, either trade DeMar, trade Vooch, trade Zach, or trade all three or some combination of them.
Yeah.
And tank. And yet those 40% odds may be your best bet and whatever assets you can get. But it's kind of depressing, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
that sucks. It just sucks. Like, I was hoping to watch like a nice team, even if they weren't, even if we're a first round exit or a second round exit, at least we could enjoy like some good basketball. And we just haven't had any of that at all.
Yeah, it's, and I just feel like, and I don't know, maybe this might be a little too harsh of a word to use, but Acme, man, it's almost like it's been malpractice. How they have not added, what this team needed to continue to be to evolve and add the shooting. Like, I don't understand how you could look at the roster and say, "Oh yeah, we're good. We're good with the shooting." I mean,
I don't know how they do that. They did it at the trade deadline. They did it in the offseason, and they're doing it now.
my
Right
goodness,
now.
And maybe it was
What are they seeing that we're not seeing, Laro?
uh,
What medical report have they looked at for Lonzo's knee that says keep the faith? Because, I feel like they would have reported that if it was true.
Yeah.
Like, if you got good news on Lonzo's knee, I would be broadcasting that to every media station.
Yep.
Because it is dismal. And you can tell these Bulls, and Dragic just said this, we're not playing for each other. They're just not. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no cavalry coming in. Like, they are legitimately certified screwed if they keep doing what they're doing. There's no other way around it at this point. And it's funny because they're not a terrible team. They're a very average team with their current roster. But they are so awful in the clutch. They are the worst clutch team in the NBA this season after being the third best last season. That is such a reversal that their record shows them to be a much worse team than they've played overall. In over 48 minutes, they've been a pretty average team. But the last 5 minutes have been so abysmal that they've lost all of these games that they should have won, or they should have won a couple of them. And I think, if they were 15-15 or even 14-16 or something, maybe the outlook would be a little bit different. But they're 11-18 now, and their last few losses have been just bad looks. So.
Yeah, and a lot of like that clutch number stuff is, it sucks to say, but it's Zach, man. I mean, last year before his knee injury with the Golden State Warriors, him and DeMar were top 5 in fourth quarter scoring. And he's a huge piece to what these guys in the front office thought this team was going to be, and he just, as much as he's trying to be that guy, he just hasn't been that guy, and it's hurting the team. It is, and especially in late game situations, so they need the scoring, man. And and the efficiency is not where it used to be and where it was last season. And again, I told myself that I would give Zach until All-Star break, but it's like, man, this team may not even make it to All-Star break. For if he did turn back into the same guy, it may be too late. So it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's tough. I think this has been an episode that has clearly had a different tone than our other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's a part of it is because we are, this team unfortunately has us by the horns. I won't use the metaphor I was going to use, but it hurts. It hurts to watch this team be where it's at, because this franchise should be so much better than it currently is. The Chicago Bulls franchise, their location, their storied history, the financials of the organization all tell you that this should be a top 5 organization in the league. It should be a free agent destination. They should be spending the luxury tax whenever it's called for. There's no reason why they can't do that. It's Jerry Reinsdorf's ownership has put self-imposed limitations on this franchise that have crippled them. They don't invest in their staff. They don't hire people. They don't have an analytics department. They only had one player development person in the organization the entire time they were tanking until Acme took over. One. They don't have a shooting coach. They don't invest in anything. They just don't do it. Like, these are things that are killing them, because it doesn't matter. People say they have a bad drafting record. I don't think so. Lowry looks like a good pick at number 7. Wendell looks like a good pick at number 7. They just weren't developed. If you have to draft good, you have to draft well, and then you have to invest in the development of those draft picks. They only did one of those 2 steps. And if you're going to skip steps, you're going to have situations where a guy like Kobe White goes to another team this offseason, gets a proper training staff, and all of a sudden he starts popping off the page and looks like a great scorer in the league. Happened with Lowry, happened with Wendell. It'll happen to Pat if they don't start doing something different. They have a track record of not developing their own draft picks. That's a way worse thing than whatever you draft, because you're gonna take some hits and you're gonna take some misses on these draft picks, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't missed badly on these high first round picks. They just haven't developed them. They haven't put them in a position to succeed. They haven't spent the time to do that. And now maybe that's changed. I know since Acme took over, they have hired more people, and we just haven't seen the fruits of it yet. But based on what they're running on offense, based on the roster that they have and the type of people they're bringing in, it's hard to see any evidence of that improvement. And we obviously have seen them decide not to spend into the luxury tax. They had their full MLE. They could have gotten Isaiah Hartenstein, for example, as a backup center with that full MLE, who, Drummond's been fine, but like, that's a guy that kind of fits your roster more. He has rim protection. You can pass, you can shoot a little bit. He's versatile. Like, that's a move they should have made, but they've handicapped themselves by saying, we're not going to pay the tax. We're not even going to dip our toe into it. Like, those are the things that for the franchise are inexcusable. It's inexcusable for you guys not to spend money. It's just money. That's it. That's a self-imposed limitation that is senseless for an organization that is as absolutely filthy wealthy as it is. I mean, it's a disgrace. And I'll get off my soapbox here, but I just think that the Chicago Bulls should be so much better than they are. And I don't even know how much blame to put on Acme versus the ownership.
Yeah.
But Acme obviously put together a roster that hasn't functioned well. Their medical staff has been terrible for at least a decade, and it's the same medical staff that told Luol Deng and Omer Ashik to man up when they absolutely should not have been playing basketball. It's the same one where every point guard seems to have knee issues that we get here. It just, the Bulls have been hit by injuries harder than almost any other team. And at some point you have to recognize, that it might be you, that there's one common denominator among all these things. So sorry for the long rant, but I just feel like there's so much potential for the Bulls to be a great organization, and they have squandered it at every opportunity for decades.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. There's not much, me. And here's the deal: like, you not trying to say that your pain is nothing at all, because definitely we are equal. But add another team that Jerry Reinsdorf owns on top of that, and the White Sox, and it's pretty much the same feeling. Not spending a lot of money. Team bought for $19 million, now worth about almost close to $2 billion now, and you don't like to spend money. Like, side note really quick, I know this is Swiss theory, okay, but I just need to say this for a second, okay? The White Sox
swing theory, yeah.
The White Sox just signed a player in Andrew Benintendi, who's a very, very good outfielder, but they just set the franchise record for a contract. Do you want to guess what the money it is?
I mean, they just set the record for Zach LaVine's contract within this last 6 months, right? So it can't be good.
$75 million contract.
You're kidding. That's the most they've ever paid a player on their roster?
Dude,
I don't follow baseball, obviously. But I just saw a contract signed today for a lot more than that for some teams. So
I don't know, man. It's pretty bad, but
I'm ready. I'm ready. I think you got to move DeMar because it opens up reps for Pat.
Yep.
I think you got to move Vooch because you need a more modern center. I know it's a sunk cost fallacy to think this way, but imagine knowing at the time that they traded Wendell, what the pick that became Franz Wagner, and then whatever this pick becomes this year for Vucevic, and then we're going to trade Vucevic for like expiring or like what? Like it's just such a waste of assets, such a waste. Wendell Carter is getting paid like $12.5 million this year.
Yeah.
And for the next like 4 years, I think he would be more valuable long-term and in the short term for this team than Vooch. And that's no disrespect to Vooch, who's a good player, but I just think Wendell offers you so much more versatility on the defensive end. His passing is really improved. His shooting is improved. Like the drop-off is not worth the difference between those two players. If you think there's a big difference, is not worth the assets at cost. And I know it's sunk cost. So we got to get up. We got to move on from that. But
think about this, man. Before we move on, think about this. Alex Caruso and Wendell Carter Jr. defending the pick and roll, with Patrick Williams still growing as the back line defense.
Lonzo Ball out there.
Lonzo Ball, like, you want to run 5 out, you can run 5 out still. Want to do some dribble handoff stuff, you can still do some dribble handoff stuff. He's one of the best screeners in the game. Might be a better screener than Vooch. And it's like,
he is great screener. He's the Magic's most important player too right now. Like, he is the glue for their winning.
Man, you're right.
And Lowry's like an MIP candidate. And it's funny because the Vooch trade also but basically led to the Lowry trade as well. Because Lowry and Vooch were so similar players in a lot of ways, and there just wasn't a lot of room. But even Lowry's contract, which I said he's probably going to get between 15 and 18 million, which I think he got 16.
Mm-hmm.
I said he's not going to be worth that contract his first year, but it's a second contract on a guy who's shown a lot of promise. Now he was very inconsistent, right? Like, there were legitimate reasons for people to be down on him because he had a lot of leeway here to be really good, and he just never really was with any consistency. But that's still a decent contract, and it's if we might have been able to afford keeping Lowry if we had just not traded for Vooch. So it is what it is. I mean, I think, we're just kind of focused on the past year, but I honestly think DeMar, Vooch can get you something. Mm-hmm. I said on Salim's podcast, I would really look at the Brooklyn Nets and see if they would trade Vooch for Joe Harris straight up, because Joe Harris is a amazing movement shooter and a really good point of fact. He's a really good perimeter defender as well. So he kills two birds with one stone. He's a two-way player. It's something they direly need. I think I would look at trying to pick up Isaiah Hartenstein from the Knicks. Maybe they're interested in someone like Kobe or Derek Jones, or
that
you can make it work.
The move, because I think so. I think that that's kind of like the thing. They're kind of fighting back and forth. Isaiah Hartenstein doesn't really fit what Tibbs wants him to do offensively, but they also have Jericho Sims, who his skill set is what Tibbs want the big to do, which is be like a crazy good roller to the rim, which Jericho Sims is. I mean, so it's like that might be a good team to look at, to try to pull Hartenstein, because Jericho Sims is probably ready to step into a backup big role.
Yep, and I know the Knicks are also shopping Cam Reddish. Like, there's a flyer maybe that's worth taking on him.
Yeah,
there's things that they can do this season. There's a lot of teams this season, as we've talked about in just our 8 episodes here. There's a lot of teams this season that are kind of like disappointments, right? Like the Wizards are on a skid. The Toronto Raptors are on a skid. The Atlanta Hawks have been all over the place. The Heat haven't been very good. The Mavs haven't been good. The Denver Nuggets, their record is good, but their defense has been abysmal. The Minnesota Timberwolves are looking super shaky, even though they just dropped 150 on the Bulls tonight. They've been super up and down. There's a lot of teams this season that are looking to make changes. I think the Bulls would be absolute morons not to take advantage of this situation and try and be sellers. Try and at least reduce the age of your roster a few years. And I think DeMar's value's never been higher, I think, at this point.
I think part of being a good GM, a good front office person is, understanding when you may have made a mistake and not sitting too long on it and allowing it to get worse. Because the last thing you want to do is like, wait, hey, DeMar, we don't want to move DeMar. And then he ends up getting, maybe the production drops. Maybe, I don't know, he gets injured, knock on wood, and then you lose out on moving a guy like that and recouping something, Vooch, maybe his production just drops way off the cliff, and then now you can't get anything for him. So it's like, don't be, again, how I like to do this, but a perfect example for all my Bears fans out there, right? Ryan Pace, the GM for the Bears during this time, traded up one pick and gave away a bunch of draft compensation for a quarterback in the name of Mitch Trubisky. Okay. And he thought this was the guy, right? Thought this was a guy, went all in, got a strong defense, went and got a star pass rusher because he thought, you know what, we got our guy. But there were many signs that he wasn't the guy. And instead of listening to those signs, he just doubled down. No, this is my guy. This is my guy. This is my guy. Don't be that GM. Understand. Don't continue to have to. Don't put yourselves in a situation where you have to keep putting Band-Aids over your wound that you created. Like, no. Understand when you need to move on. Move on. Get what you need.
Admit it, and move it.
Yep.
Let's go. That's really it. It's the Bulls are not as bad as their record says, but they are not good enough to continue down this path any longer. I think that much is clear at this point. Even if they go on a 10-game winning streak, I'd still feel the same way.
Yeah.
So, that is what it is. Well, I hope someone enjoyed this episode. It's really depressing, but Steph is a really brilliant mind. He's really good. He's probably the Bulls fan / media person that has made me think about basketball the most in the time that I've followed the Bulls. And now he's doing it at a national level. Read his articles. They're always good. He's always looking at stuff that no one else is looking at. So make sure you follow him at Steph Noh. Make sure you follow him and his articles at Sporting News. And I think we'll try and shift gears a little bit next week and find a team that's doing well. Although the Celtics just lost back-to-back to the Magic, and we just talked about the Magic last week, right? So, and that was a great episode. They're on a winning streak. The Knicks are on a winning streak. So maybe we'll hopefully switch this up a little bit and find a team that's maybe not struggling as bad and have a little bit more of a joyous episode. But the Chicago Bulls are not in a good spot. I think they can get out of it, even with the 2023 pick possibly going to Orlando. I think they've got plenty of options to improve their future. But going down the current path is not it anymore at this point for me. Any last words, Laro, for this funeral?
Well, let's as Bulls fans, people that really watch this team, be ready for anything. Last time that a big move was made, we didn't hear anything about it. We had no rumbling. We had no thought that Vooch was on the mind of AK. So hopefully it's the same thing. Hopefully, we just wake up one morning and Shams or Woj, we get a notification to our phone saying that something has happened, because if you continue to sit and watch these efforts and it's starting to become consistent. It's not a one-off. It's not like you said earlier in the pod where like there are times as a team when you have lulls, you have you string together a couple bad outings, but these are starting to become consistent. And so I think it's time if you're you got front row seats and a nice cushy, skybox, you're seeing these things, you're in practice. I think you have to start acting and I hope he isn't that the GM that's like, this is me. I know it can work. I know it. This is it. I know it can work. I know it can work. I'm not making any moves. It can work. And then boom, it just implodes. No, the continuity thing, just leave it alone. He kept bringing up continuity. The best teams have continuity, but a lot of those best teams have Giannis, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Middleton, Book, Chris Paul, Ayton. Go through all the teams that he continued to talk about continuity with. They have stars that have been together, and yes, continuity matters for them. But like, we don't have a top 10 guy, and DeMar in some weeks may be a top 10 with his output, but like not consistently. So the continuity stuff, I was buying in because I was thinking that Lonzo would be back, and I loved what the team looked like when Lonzo was there. But now that we are clearly seeing that he's probably not going to play this season, it's time, man. Make a move. Even if Lonzo needs to sit out, hopefully the pain goes away, and you still have Lonzo under contract. You got Pat Williams. You got a couple other guys that you'll have on, that you could play. So it's like, you may get backlash from saying you failed, but that's going to happen anyway. Just make a move and make the game. Just make a move. Throw something else out there for. It's like when you got a bunch of dogs and you pull out some dog food or something like that, and you throw, they're all looking at the meat, and then you throw it over there. Like, that's what you got to do. Make a trade, throw it away, throw it over there. Hey, I made a move, and then all the fans will go over there. Oh, and this nice new shiny toy, and then that'll release some pressure for you. But it's like, make a move. Hopefully, AK, if you're listening, brother, hey, I'm with you. You sold me. You made me feel good about the Last Dance stuff. Oh man, I was watching the Last Dance. It makes me want to bring the Chicago Bulls back, to where they used to be. You had me there. Now it's like, AK, it's time, man. Gotta make a move. Some way, somehow, something.
Yep. And, and as we've talked about, making the move is just step one.
Yeah.
You have to actually invest in your roster. You have to invest in player development. You have to invest in analytics. You have to invest in all the things that these other teams should not have an advantage on you for. The Bulls should be one of the best organizations in basketball. So now's the time. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for us today. Make sure you rate and review our podcast. Let us know how we're doing. You can email us at swishtheorypod@gmail.com. Make sure and follow Swish Theory on Twitter at Swish Theory. Lots of great stuff coming. Not only articles, scouting reports, but lots of good stuff in the works for next year. There's honestly, I'm really excited for Swish Theory. At least something's going well this year. Swish Theory is one of it. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.